Donald Trump's tariffs have had an impact on Manitoba's bottom line. But our fiscal path remains clear, and we're committed to balancing the budget.
Well, if it isn't Donald Trump playing his favorite game again, economic chicken with America's closest allies. And this time, Canada's getting absolutely hammered with a whopping 25% tariff threat that's got Mark Carney, the man who literally ran the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, looking like someone just told him his Tim Hortons order was completely wrong. Picture this: the former central banker extraordinaire, the guy who's seen financial crises come and go, now possibly stepping into Canadian politics, and Trump's already throwing tariff grenades before Carney's even officially in the race. Talk about a welcome to politics party nobody asked for. Quick favor, if you're loving this, hit that subscribe button and smash the notification bell to keep getting the latest updates on Canadian and UK politics. Cheers if you did. Now back to the show. So let's break down this absolute circus, shall we? Trump's announced he's slapping a 25% tariff on Canadian goods, and honestly, it's like watching your neighbor threaten to build a fence because your maple tree drops leaves in their yard. Except this fence costs billions of dollars and threatens thousands of jobs. The former president, who might very well be the next president again, is wielding tariffs like they're some kind of magic wand that solves everything. Spoiler alert, they don't. What they actually do is make everything more expensive for American consumers whilst simultaneously punching Canada's economy right in the gut. But hey, who needs facts when you've got campaign rallies to fire up, right? Now here's where it gets properly interesting. Mark Carney, the golden boy of global finance, Mr. Steady Hand on the economic tiller himself, is reportedly frustrated. And when I say frustrated, I mean the kind of frustrated where you maintain your professional composure but internally you're screaming into void. Carney's been floated as a potential Liberal leadership candidate in Canada.
We've experienced the worst wildfire season in 30 years and one of the largest evacuation efforts in living memory. While Manitobans came together in inspiring ways to respond to these fires, there was a real fiscal cost to the provincial treasury. In addition, we're
possibly even the next prime minister, and Trump's already making his hypothetical job description look like a nightmare written by a sadistic economist. Imagine preparing for a job interview and your future problems are already trending on social media. That's essentially Carney's life right now. But let's talk about what these tariffs actually mean, because it's not just abstract economic theory. We're talking about Canadian steel, aluminium, lumber, and a whole host of goods that suddenly become 25% more expensive for American buyers. That means American construction companies pay more, American manufacturers pay more, and ultimately, American consumers pay more. It's Economics 101, except apparently someone skipped that lecture. Canada's response? Well, they're not exactly rolling over. Canadian officials have made it crystal clear that if Trump wants a trade war, they'll retaliate with their own tariffs on American goods. It's like watching two people argue over who gets the last biscuit, except the biscuit is worth billions and everyone's grandchildren will still be paying for it. Here's the kicker though. Canada is America's second largest trading partner.
We're seeing the impact of a historic drought. Manitoba Hydro is reporting that water flows are tied for the second worst year on record. To put it mildly, it hasn't been this bad for over 80 years. When we released Budget 2025, we were projecting a deficit of
They share the longest international border in the world. They're literally neighbors who've been getting along reasonably well for over a century. And now Trump wants to treat them like some rogue nation that's been stealing America's lunch money. The frustration from Carney and other Canadian officials isn't just about economics, it's about the sheer absurdity of threatening your closest ally over what essentially amounts to political theater. Because let's be honest, that's what this is. Trump knows tariffs play well with his base. They sound tough. They sound like America's winning. But the actual economic reality? That's a completely different story. And speaking of stories, let's not forget the UK's watching all this unfold with a mixture of horror and relief. Horror because they're seeing what happens when Trump decides someone's a target. Relief because at least this time it's not them in the crosshairs. British politicians are taking notes, you can be sure of that.
$796 million. Today, with our second quarter report, we're projecting a deficit of $1.661 billion to year end. We will put contingencies in place to ensure that if we do continue to see those challenges next year, we will.
They're watching Carney, a man who used to be their central banker, dealing with this transatlantic mess and thinking, blimey, rather him than us. But here's the thing, if Trump's willing to go after Canada like this, the UK better believe they're not immune. Trade agreements, special relationships, historical alliances, none of that matters when tariffs become campaign props. The broader picture here is genuinely concerning. We're watching the potential unraveling of decades of trade cooperation.
We'll have budget prepared to respond to that. And so it's about preparation and ensuring that that preparation is in keeping with our broader target, which is ensuring we deliver on a balanced budget goal.
They have no plan to balance the budget other than continually saying they're going to balance the budget, but the proof is in the numbers and the facts. And they clearly show that this NDP government is driving this province into the ground and
all because one man thinks tariffs are the answer to everything. Carney's frustration represents something bigger than just one politician being annoyed. It represents the frustration of anyone who understands that modern economies are interconnected, that trade wars don't have winners, and that threatening your allies is a spectacularly bad strategy for long-term prosperity. But nuance doesn't fit on a campaign hat, does it? So where does this leave Canada? Where does it leave Carney? Honestly, in a position where they're having to prepare for the worst whilst hoping for the best. If Carney does become Prime Minister, his entire economic strategy will have to account for an unpredictable, tariff-happy American administration. That's like trying to build a house on a foundation that randomly shifts every few months. It's possible, but it's going to be exhausting, expensive, and absolutely maddening. Thanks for watching, folks. This has been Epic Icons News, where we break down the political chaos so you don't have to. Stay informed, stay skeptical, and we'll see you in the next one.